Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into my channel. So in today's video, we're going to be going back into some of my personal archives to relive some of these memories that I've had in Japan from going all the way back to 2016. And I've divided up today's video into different segments of when I was able to go on said trip to Japan. And really the reason why I'm doing this is because I've always enjoyed kind of going back through old photo albums that my family had taken of me, my siblings, other family members in years past. And so today I thought it would be fun to kind of continue that same tradition and really share some of the stories behind some of these photos I've taken during my time in Japan. So let's get to it. Starting at this photo, we'll cover why I guess I wasn't able at least to take a lot of photos in Tokyo and Kanazawa at the time on this trip, and why we're starting out at Nara randomly. But what's really cool about this picture was that it was just one of the first pagodas I had seen. I had been to some of the gardens in Kanazawa at this point. I had seen some smaller pagodas in Tokyo, but seeing this one with everything else in Nara was really cool. And this photo has my friend Ian. This is my friend from middle school. We took this trip together, and this was kind of, for me, this was a self-directed study abroad, but he was able to come and join along with me just for the fun of it. And yeah, it's a pretty cool photo I took back in that time. It's funny, like, kind of looking back at some of these photos that now I'm like a stickler of like shooting raw or just shooting JPEG for the fact of no editing involved. And like, I edited the mess out of this photo while it was not raw. It's clearly a JPEG. And I can see like some of the not great things about this photo, but I don't know, looking back at it, it's still kind of cool. I like how it's positioned and all. Eating the deer was really cool. I still think it's one of the coolest parts of, like, if you could go to Nara, I would always recommend it. A lot of people kind of suggest skipping it if you don't have enough time. I think like being in part of a city where like deer are just like roaming around free and being able to feed them and all is really cool. So these back-to-back photos I love because it showed like, so it's like a debated topic whether like the deer are actually bowing to you as a sign of respect in Japan, or if they're just kind of like put the food down so I can get the food and eat it. I like to think that they're bowing out of respect because everybody else is bowing afterwards and the deer kind of bow right after. But I will also notice that there are deer like that start bowing before they even get the food to kind of be like, hey, I am bowing, so please give me food. But who knows, right? So the Arashiyama bamboo forest was one of my favorite experiences at night to do because I had never seen first time seeing a bamboo forest, but seeing it at night with the lights around it kind of gave it like this really mystical, magical feel. And at this time I hadn't gone in the morning. In other photos I'll show that I definitely was able to go in the morning, and it's also a very great experience. It's two very different experiences. At night there's so many people, there's so many tourists, and it does take away a bit from the magic, but there's some like pockets within the bamboo forest that you're able to kind of go to and just enjoy kind of like the look of this. But if you want this type of photo that's like specifically with like the bamboo forest like on the sides while you're walking down the middle, you cannot get that without like tourists being in these photos, as you can see here. But still, all in all, a very cool experience. But this inaugural trip was really hectic for me and my friend. Like, this was the first time he had ever been out of the country. This was my first time navigating a country alone, and so we hit a lot of different places. We went from Tokyo to Kanazawa, Kanazawa to Nara, Nara to Kyoto, Kyoto to Osaka, Osaka, then we flew to Okinawa to visit my other friend, and then Okinawa back to Tokyo. So that it was like all within 10 days we were doing this. So in my head, like, I didn't feel like I had time. I feel like I could have made the time if I really wanted to, but this was definitely that trip that really solidified for me that I wanted to come back. Now, the second part of the trip is me going to go work in Japan, and I'm shooting a lot of this with the A7S II and this A7R3 maybe at this point I had, but it's funny with the A7S II, it really opened my eyes to like raw, like shooting raw in general, and then being able to edit the way that I wanted to, at least like tried to at this time. Even if I look back, I probably can critique a lot of my photos back then, but it's still nice to kind of like look back and see my journey. And it was funny because I got this camera. The A7S II is obviously a camera that is way more video centric, because the photo can only do, I believe it's still, the A7S III can also do only a 12 megapixel shots. And I barely used the video functionality because I really love taking photos. And I took this camera for me to Cuba, to Egypt, Pakistan, a lot of travels I've done with that camera, and forever, really forever grateful for that camera. That opened up my love for photography, honestly. So here we're starting off in Okayama, and this is where the company that hired me, we did our training in Okayama. So we went from Osaka to Okayama, and this was just like on a travel out to just chill after work. If anyone knows, like, work in Japan is strenuous, tiring, so being able to go out and enjoy time. This is just a couple of my favorite shots. I really like kind of like the oranges I brought out here. This was cool seeing this elderly woman be able to just bike with ease. I always enjoy shooting street photography in Japan. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's kind of the nostalgia watching anime. Like in this photo, you see kind of the train crossways and the streets just kind of all mingled together with the colors of the trees and everything. It just, I don't know, very picturesque for me. This was the garden across from Okayama Castle. Really nice park. Now we move on to my apartment, living in Okayama. So this is my apartment. Be sitting down, super moody photo, extra moody. Honestly, did not look this moody. Had my mini TV. I did not turn on once, to be honest. The kitchen, not much cooking was being done here. Didn't have time, one, and because of working in Japan is something very separate than visiting Japan. But yeah, I'm also not a great cook at all. Had my work bag and my basketball bag, so those are like the two things that I did in Japan. Was I would travel around, I'd work, and then I'd go play basketball on the one day of the week that I had time to, because the other day of the week I was studying or trying to make sure my house was in order. This photo is funny. I'm trying to show off my website on this one with my little desk with the chair, the most uncomfortable chair I've ever had in a setup. The glow up from that chair to now just chilling on a Irvin Miller is quite different. Humbling days for sure, but I don't know, miss it a little bit too. Funny enough too, that monitor, I remember I got it in Nagoya, and so this is, oh, I don't know if I mentioned, but this is Okazaki, and in Okazaki, it's about 25-30 minute train ride away from Nagoya. And so I got in big camera, which is where you get a lot of electronics in Japan. The big camera in Nagoya had this Sonic, I think it's just called Sonic monitor that was like really nice. It was a good price, got it used. But getting it back to my apartment, I didn't really think about it. I got it in this big box, and then by the time I got out of the train, I realized I needed then like to bike quite a far away, because I went to a train that was a lot further from my house than the usual train that was nearby my house. So I went there, and then I cycled. In one hand I was holding up the monitor, and the other hand I'm trying to like balance and ride my bike. And this was one of the first times I learned how to ride a bike one-handed, because at that time from before I was getting back into biking. I know how to ride a bike and all that before I came to Japan, but never really tried to experiment biking with one hand. But that time I was like, this is taking way too long if I hold it and try to bike at the same time. But if I can hold it with one arm around my armpit and then bike with the other, I'll be able to get there done. And that's how I learned how to do it. Little balcony shot from my apartment. But yes, that's my apartment. And actually I have photos of kind of the rooftop view from my apartment, which was always fun to shoot on. Yeah, and that mini stop, I would either have leftover Nepalese Indian food, like a kebab or something from the next day I would eat for lunch, or I would stop by this mini stop and I would get a salmon onigiri and eat that for lunch. Oh, and a mini stop is like if you have 7-Eleven, you have Lawson, you have all these other convenience stores. One of them is Mini Stop. Mini Stop's known as kind of like has really nice desserts, and I didn't get to really fully try them because I'm unfortunately a very picky eater, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. Loved the salmon onigiri when I ate it. Now, this is one of my favorite photos ever I've taken. This was in Okazaki Park, I believe, and it was right in front of Okazaki Castle, which will pop up in a second. But it's crazy because the original color of this photo is actually green, and this was during the springtime, I believe, or no, it was fall time, but maybe fall time where it was just changing the colors and the green colors were going out. But I actually edited this to make it orange, and I really loved it, and I kept it, and it's one of my most liked photos on social media ever. It's a beautiful, one of my favorites, honestly. And I think for me also what I really love is that this is actually my bike. I set it up like on the side to like take a photo of it because I'm like, I want to remember my bike. I loved my bike in Japan. Everyone kind of makes fun of it because it's known as kind of like a mother's bike because of the little basket up front, because a lot of mothers will have like baskets in front because they'll do shopping, but the younger kids and the, I guess, cooler guys, they don't have it. But I don't know, I love it. Okay, so now on one of the few times off that I had, was able to go to Matsumoto, which is a city in the Nagano prefecture. And it was really known as like a place that you should go visit in the fall time. I kind of missed out, I think, on like the prime time to go. One, because the leaves weren't that colorful, and two, it was very cloudy the day that I came. So I think I missed out on like the prime time. But one of my favorite castles ever was this Crow Castle in Matsumoto. It's all black. It's very cool. I've seen a couple of castles now, but it's definitely my favorite castle that I've captured, and also one of the most liked photos that I've ever had on social media. So I guess there's something for that as well. Okay, now this lookout that I took these photos of is one of my favorite lookouts ever, because one, there was nobody on it when I was taking photos except one person with like a huge telescopic lens, and he left after like 10 minutes. But you climb up this like tower. I made a video on it like a long time ago, and when I look back in archives of my video, I'll definitely have it there, but it's because I have to find it. But this photo, like these photos, are some of my favorite just because of how grand they looked. Maybe it's not doing the greatest job of compression and the wide angles I don't have of this area as well, but some of my favorite photos ever, honestly. And that concludes my time when I was living in Japan. Some of the photos I took a lot more video at this. I say a lot, but it was about 8 months that I lived in Okazaki, and I taken some videos of me playing basketball and like kind of like that journey as well. And maybe if there's enough, like if I can garner enough of like confidence to be able to show some of that footage, I will one day. But yeah, let's go on to the next part, which was my honeymoon in Japan. So for my honeymoon in Japan, we started off in Osaka, and in general I took way more photos here because I have an understanding now of how to get around and all. I feel like I had the time to, and I think that's one thing that my wife appreciated about the trip, was that even though we were in a different country, it felt like I knew what I was doing, which is probably a good thing considering I lived there. But yeah, this is one of the few times also that I feel like I got to see Osaka quite a lot better. We stayed at the St. Regis our first night, and we got an upgrade from them for our honeymoon, and it was a beautiful view in the morning of the sunrise of showing the city. It was amazing. Then we went to go visit Osaka Castle, which I had never visited, and I had never visited Shinsekai either, so that was really cool to see as well. And yes, okay, so from before I was shooting on the A7S II for my for when I lived there, and then A7 Mark IV is what I'm shooting here in Japan, for my honeymoon in Japan. I feel like the A7R3, I don't think I ever, maybe going back it'll show me, maybe when I'm going through the footage and editing I'll know which camera that I shot with, but I don't think I shot with the A7R3 in Japan, because there was a point where when COVID happened, and that's why there's such a long time between when I lived in Japan and when I went for my honeymoon, that there was supposed to be a year that I went with my friends to Japan that I had the A7R3, but never got to use it because of the pandemic. Okay, then we moved on to Tokyo, and I actually never visited this famous street, and it's my memory's fleeting of like what this street is called again, but there's a famous shrine here. This is like where a lot of older looking buildings are. It's very picturesque. Been here a couple of times now though, but a very beautiful place to visit. But a lot of people there when we went, because it was I don't know, I guess because of the beautiful leaves at the time, and there was lots of school kids coming as a field trip, and yeah, it was quite packed, but nonetheless all beautiful. Once again, the leaves were just beautiful to look at, especially in Kyoto. Other places it was definitely showing up like this, how beautiful it is, but Kyoto is already like traditionally known as like one of the more beautiful places in the world. But man, like during the fall time, I cannot recommend it enough to definitely go visit here. And not only in this area, but also in the Golden Temple. Some of my favorite shots of it was during this time. Just the way the sun hits the golden part of the temple is just beautiful. Okay, so funny enough, me and my wife had the matcha ice cream like in a lot of different parts of Japan at this point. But for some reason, our favorite one, and maybe this sounds ridiculous, but the favorite one was at the Golden Temple, which I thought was going to be the most overrated one, especially with the golden flakes. I was like, okay, this is all kind of like, feels very scammy to be honest, but was the best tasting one by far. The Hokkaido ice cream, which is the vanilla one, well, not so much to be honest in my opinion, but the matcha one definitely hit a lot better than I thought it was going to. And yes, now we're back with the bamboo forest, but during the daytime, early in the daytime, we got up early to make sure like nobody was there. And that was such a good idea because it just, I mean, I would never be able to get a shot like this with at night when there's like tons and tons of people, but I can only get it here just because no one's there and it's just beautiful. Okay, crazy. If you can see like closely in this photo, there's a dog and there's like lights on the dog to do like a proper photo shoot just here. It was way too early to try and like make sense of what was going on, but fair play to the dog. I really like this photo. I didn't even realize that there was like a couple standing there when I took this, so when I look back at it I was like, oh wow, like I wish I had like told them that I had taken this photo and maybe given it to them in some way. But yeah, so then we made our way to Nara, and we climbed Mount, I want to say Mount Wakasaka, but Wakakusa, sorry, it's Mount Wakakusa. I really enjoy like this view, and at first I didn't enjoy it because I didn't realize how like long it took to go up the steps for it. And me and my wife, we had done a lot of walking at this point, and I had my bag full of like camera gear, and she was like, let's race up the stairs. And from in the beginning where you see the stairs, you don't realize like how much more stairs there is. So I went on like a full-on sprint with her in the beginning, and then we realized just how much more we have to walk, and it was killer for me until we got up there. But fully do not ever regret coming here. It's just so cool, and seeing the deer up here, I made me wonder, how did you get up here, I guess, but obviously the same way that I got up there. But man, just, and I was able to get like one of my favorite photos ever that I've taken in Japan. And it's, I don't know, something about it, like if I go back and edit, maybe I can take the people out or wherever, but I don't know, something about like the colors and the trees and seeing the mountain, being on the mountain, the foreground with the flowers being blurred out, it's just one of my favorite photos I've ever taken for sure. Okay, so then at this point we were actually supposed to go to Mount Fuji for part of a day and then go back, but we were really tired from just all the walking we had done up to this point. The total of this trip was 7 days, and if anyone knows like traveling to Japan and all the places that I've said, they would know it's a very hectic trip to do in 7 days. But because of that, we were like, let's just enjoy an extra day in Tokyo. Let's like go out of the way to see Mount Fuji another day, because it's not like Mount Fuji is not also the easiest place. You got to go on a bus or take a taxi. It's not like you can just take a train all the way down and just get out of a station and go see Mount Fuji. It's not like that. And so we took an extra day, and in the morning we went to this really beautiful cafe my wife found, and it was just this greenhouse that's also like sells flowers right next door. But seeing like flowers kind of pop through the table where you eat, and just being surrounded by greenery in a city of concrete is crazy. And then of course we had to do all the things that you do in Tokyo: Harajuku, Shibuya, Shinjuku, Asakusa, all that. And that was it for my honeymoon. Shots that I couldn't like really show, because there's a lot of shots that are, I don't know, a lot more personal between me and my wife, and it feels like I took a lot more of those like more memorable photos between us. And I don't know, the whole trip was really enjoyable, and it was cool to go on my honeymoon with her, because it wasn't my idea to go, because I mean obviously I had been, but she had always been like, I wanted to go, and I won't, because you talk so highly of the place, so I want to go see why you enjoy it so much. And definitely converted her into a believer of like, yes, would love to visit Japan multiple times now. Now the last and latest trip that I've taken was actually with my friends. The trip that was supposed to happen during the pandemic time but wasn't able to, and still kind of sucks because a lot of my friends, like obviously as time passes you kind of grow apart because you have to go on with your regular day. You're all living separate lives now. You've got responsibilities, but it was cool to like have my friends and my two brothers come on this trip because I've always wanted to take them here, and I've just kept badgering on and on about like we have to go to Japan, and you'll understand when you go there. So being able to finally show them that was really cool. And this is the first trip I'm taking a different type of camera. First I started Nikon and Sony, and now I'm taking a Fujifilm, the X100V, and I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it so much that I took so many more photos, I feel like, than I did in any other trip, because it was easier to take photos. And I think for me, a lot of what I love about photography is a lot of aesthetics, and Fujifilm, like being able to create your own recipe and be able to shoot that recipe right away into a baked JPEG, and me being able to take that SD card and put it into my phone and be able to upload it, my stories right away and such, like made it such a more fun experience to shoot. And I wouldn't do this with every trip, to be honest, because I do want to take those like really nice photos with my Sony camera. Well, obviously I have my A1 now, being able to print those out into like big prints and like being able to really appreciate that type of photography. But since I've been here now three times now, I had the luxury of being able to just like shoot for fun and being able to shoot like fast casual photos in like a way that I had not done before. And that's what I really enjoyed about the Fujifilm. It made it really easy just to shoot. Okay, so I've never seen this before, where you're able to get your nose hairs plucked out just like at the station. We were waiting for our friend to come from the airport, and this is what Hiran, my friend, was doing at the time. Crazy stuff. I like this photo because we picked up Joel from the airport. These other guys, they came on all separate days, but this was like after 3 days of me waiting for these guys, they finally were all in the same place, and I was like, wow, this is really happening. I really finally get to show my friends this place. I took my brother to this place. I had never been before, honestly. Probably some type of moral weirdness going on here with all the fish being trapped here and all, but it was my brother's birthday, and being able to surprise him with the cake and all that there, he wasn't really expecting it, and so that was nice. Now here, I have only seen Mount Fuji once from the plane, when my initial trip when I came to Japan. Since then, I had never seen Mount Fuji. So I was like, I want to go to Hakone and see this place. I want to go try and see this place. And so during our ride up to our resort in Hakone, we saw it just in our bus ride, and it was a very cool experience. And it's very dominating. It's very interesting, like seeing it compared to like other mountains. And I think it's because like there are other mountains, like you see like these hillier mountainous areas around it, but Mount Fuji is just like almost like on its own, and like how big it looks. It's very impressive. And from Hakone, we went to Kyoto, and Kyoto is always as great as I've always said. A lot of my friends, when we hit Kyoto, we went to Hakone, they were like, I understand now what you mean, like Tokyo's fun, but leaving Tokyo and going to go to like Hakone and Kyoto, like they immediately already enjoyed it more than Tokyo. And that's not to bash Tokyo. I feel like that if I ever got a place, I would want it to be near Tokyo, but there's something like different when you're like in more of like the naturey parts of Japan. And Kyoto is also very touristy, so it's kind of hard to say like Kyoto's that much different, but when you're able to like just kind of go down like those alleyways and all that, it's just a different feeling comparatively to Tokyo, in my opinion. This was cool because I had seen this online, and it was me and my wife's anniversary after I had come back right from Japan, and I wanted to make a fragrance for her. Okay, then we climbed up the monkey park. It did not realize how long it takes to go up actual monkey park. And I keep saying all these places are long. In relative like length of a trip, it's not that long. Like it takes like an hour. Like you're like, okay, it's not like that bad of a time. But when you have such a crunched amount of time to go visit a country and see everything, you kind of wonder like, okay, like am I making the best use of my time? I think monkey park's actually worth it. It's a very cool experience. That is it for my photo journey of Japan. I hope this is part one. I hope that there's lots of other trips coming up, whether that's with family, friends, loved ones. And I can only say that when it comes to the photo part of the journey in Japan, you would never be disappointed. You should go in general outside of photo, but especially if you want to take photos, I think this is one of the best countries ever that I've been able to photograph and had the privilege to go multiple times now. So I hope you all stay well, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.